What's going on, YouTube? Bacon here, bringing you another video. This one gonna be my semifinals match for the ABC. Sorry, there's been a little bit of a lull in games going up. Basically, there was a bye week for me at the beginning of ABC playoffs, so I had a week off prior to playing. And then in the VPL, I've had my week 8 game got postponed pretty far, and then I didn't want to upload week 8 without having week 9 without having week 8 and everything. So all these games are going to get up probably sometime over the course of this week. So you'll see quite a few videos out from me this week, finishing up the VPL regular season and getting through this video here for the semifinals match in the ABC. Yeah, that was the only quick housekeeping note there, I guess. So we can get back into the match here. Like I mentioned, I had the first round bye with the #1 overall seed in the ABC. And Milo, I believe, played Matt, the head of the league, in a very close game. I think 1-0. So was able to pick up the win and got to face me in the second round. So let me just get really quickly into Milo's team. We actually didn't play during the regular season, so this is the first time I was building for this squad. But we got in order here. We got Zeraora, Mega Scizor, Weavile, Celebi, Suicune, Arcanine, Goodra, Florges, Beware, Aerodactyl, Steelix, Mismagius, and Firium Z. Now, one kind of nice thing on paper is that all his rockers don't really have very good matchups versus me, so I think I ended up building this team without hazard removal, if I'm not mistaken. He also doesn't have rapid spin, which would mean if anybody's defogging, it's him. And I feel like he'd generally be more pressured to defog than I would, especially because, as you can see, I brought Galgi. But also, his stealth rock weaknesses with things like Weavile and Arcanine are really going to hurt him. I thought Arcanine was really critical for him in this matchup to check things like my Infernape and my Scizor. I felt like it was an extremely likely bring along with the 3 OU Mons, Zeraora, Scizor, and Weavile. Obviously, Zeraora is no longer OU, but at the time this draft was conducted, Zeraora counted as an OU Mon. So I was expecting those 3 plus Arcanine, and then had a little bit of flexibility from there. I was kind of expecting to see the Suicune. Goodra, actually, I thought had a really good matchup versus me on paper. Beware, I'm a little sad to see, because even though my team can deal with it, it's kind of like a trade. I can deal with the Beware, but it's going to kind of break one of the links in my armor here in terms of my defensive core. So kind of unfortunate to see the Beware, because otherwise I could kind of stuff out what I was expecting him to bring. But Beware's going to get to claim one, I think, just looking at the matchup. But really didn't have anything that could stop Beware without being severely crippled, basically. But let me just get really quickly into what I built here. I've got pretty standard Rotom Wash set, pretty much what I've been bringing all season. This one's actually Max Fizdef with Rocky Helmet, Volt Switch, Hydro Pump, Will-O-Wisp, and Pain Split. Because I don't have leftovers on there, I thought Pain Split was a really nice way for me to get back up health, especially if he's resting up with Suicune or healing up with his Florges like Wish or Synthesis or something like that. Thought Pain Split was really nice in this matchup to give me some longevity, especially because I'll be switching in repeatedly on things like Arcanine and probably the Scizor and Weavile as well. Kind of a lot for Rotom Wash to do this game, so I thought Pain Split was the best way to kind of keep it healthy. Volt Switch just for initiative, and he really doesn't have a good Volt Switch resist. Obviously, Zeraora is an option there to come in on Volt Switch, but it really doesn't do too much back to me. I can Hydro Pump or Will-O-Wisp it, especially if it's a physically offensive variant. I'm thinking something like a Life Orb variant with HP Ice makes sense, with the rest type of physical moves like a Fighting Move, Plasma Fists, and probably Fire Punch. I think you'd want versus me. So that's kind of the set I was expecting on the Zeraora anyways. So Rotom Wash, just a really nice defensive pivot in this game. Next up, we got Chimpact, the Infernape, coming with Life Orb, Iron Fist, Fire Punch, Mach Punch, Close Combat, and Swords Dance. At +2, nothing on his team really wants to take a hit. I expect the Arcanine to have Intimidate, so that kind of slows me down a little bit. But if rocks are up, I can KO that thing after rocks with a +1 Close Combat, like if I SD on the Switch or something like that. Obviously, a really good offensive check to something like Weavile or Scizor, because they do have Fire Punch and Mach Punch. And yeah, it just hits his team really hard. A little bit of chip on Zeraora can put it in range of Mach Punch late game. 2-hit KO Suicune with Life Orb Close Combat. If I'm +2, it should drop, unless he's like max Fizz Def. Might live if he's max Fizz Def, but maybe not after Rocks, I think is how that calc shook out. So Infernape just had a really good matchup on paper here versus him. I can set up on things like Florges, which really can't touch me too much. He may be carrying a Psychic move on Florges, but I should be able to live one and fire off a really strong +2 Fire Punch on something, worst case scenario. But yeah, Infernape just really nice in this matchup. Next up, we got SCB coming back to Dragalge with Black Sludge adaptability, Toxic Spikes, Haze, Sludge Wave, and Scald. Really didn't need Scald, but I figured it was kind of the best way for me to hit things like Steelix. I can potentially snag a burn on something like Scizor. I can hit the Arcanine. Sludge Wave should obviously do more to the Arcanine because of adaptability boosts, but Scald in general I just felt was a little more spammable than like a Dragon type move in this instance. Obviously, I'm a little threatened by things like Weavile, but I feel like the Toxic Spikes are worth it in this match. If I can Toxic or Poison something like Florges, something like a defensive variant of Arcanine, or really any variant of Arcanine to get a little bit of chip off on it. But Arcanine, even poisoning like Weavile, Zeraora, all those things are going to get worn down by Toxic Spikes. And of course, the Suicune specifically would be really nice. Something like a Vincoon could be really problematic for this team. So I really didn't want that thing just sitting on me for free. You could obviously run like a Rest variant, but I feel like you need Scald and Ice Beam versus me. Could potentially run a Rest Talk variant, but I felt like Scald and Ice Beam made more sense. So I was thinking something like maybe Calm Mind with those two options, and like maybe a third coverage move or something like that, or Sub-Calm Mind. Pretty much something that shouldn't be able to do too much to Dragalge. Can haze it, get rid of its stat boosts, and if it's a Vincoon set, like I mentioned, getting the Toxic Spikes up is going to be really nice for that. It's also a decent check to something like Zeraora. Can take a hit from Arcanine, things like that. Basically, just getting up that Toxic Spike will be really nice for me in the long run. Next up here, we got Dedicated Sackmon, the Scizor. Oh yeah, by the way, the Dragalge was just max HP, max Def. Pretty standard Dragalge there. Scizor here coming in with Akaberry, Technician, U-Turn, Bullet Punch, Natural Gift, and Swords Dance. Obviously, Natural Gift pairing pretty nicely with Akaberry here. I'm thinking I'll probably end up using the Akaberry for taking a hit from something rather than using the Natural Gift. But it's there as an option to, if I SD as he goes into Mega Scizor, just whack that thing with the +2 Natural Gift. It should drop at +2. I'm Adamant Max Attack, lots of HP, a little bit in speed. I think I was making sure I creep something like a Beware or what else is on this team? I think Florges. I was trying to speed creep Florges a little bit. Not that I really needed to, I guess, in the long run. Oh no, I was trying to speed creep no speed Scizor. That's what it was. No speed Mega Scizor. I was trying to creep with this to make sure I could potentially outspeed that before it goes for a knockoff and gets rid of my Akaberry and ruins the whole Natural Gift plan. Was basically the idea there, but kind of heat set for the Scizor here. Like I mentioned, I think it's more likely that the Akaberry will be consumed by something like a Fire Punch from a Zeraora, or I was thinking like maybe like an HP Fire from a Celebi. Things like that I feel like are more likely to be the use of that Akaberry, but it would be pretty cool. I could get a cheeky little Natural Gift off on that Scizor. I think that'd be pretty neat. Also a really nice offensive check to the Weavile, and I don't really mind sacrificing my Akaberry and a bunch of damage on my Scizor for getting U-Turn chip off on Zeraora, because that's going to make it easier for my Infernape in the late game with Mach Punch. And obviously, Zeraora naturally outspeeds my entire team, and I actually didn't bring a Choice Scarf for this week either, so Zeraora outspeeds my entire team, so it'd be nice to get some chip off on that thing. Next up, we got Gliscor. This is kind of the main response to Zeraora. I'm still 2-hit KO'd by Life Orb HP Ice, which is problematic. But I've got Nightshade the Gliscor, Toxic Orb, Poison Heal, Taunt, Roost, Earthquake, and Stealth Rock. Max HP, pretty close to max HP. A lot of special defense investment with a little bit of speed. A nice kind of check to the Arcanine. Not necessarily coming in hard on Arcanine would not necessarily be the ideal situation, but I can bring this thing on Arcanine potentially as long as my Toxic Orb's activated. Can also taunt things like the Suicune to prevent it from going from Calm Minds. Taunt things like the Florges to prevent it from defogging on me as I set Stealth Rocks, things like that. Taunt just kind of nice over the course of the match. I can taunt Scizor to prevent it from SDing on me or roosting or defogging or anything like that. And just beat that thing 1v1 with Earthquakes. So pretty good set here for the Gliscor, I think. Really important, like I mentioned, for that Zeraora. Again, another thing that's kind of pressured by Weavile, but between Scizor, Infernape, and Rotom Wash, I'm hoping to kind of keep Weavile as contained as possible. Even though that mon's just a problem in general versus my team. Last up here is Grace the Shaman, coming back with Life Orb Offensive Shaman set, max HP, sorry, not max HP, max speed, max special attack, Seed Flare, Earth Power, Hidden Power, Fire, and Dazzling Gleam. Dazzling Gleam was really only there for the Goodra, which obviously didn't end up coming, but I'd be walled by like a Sap Sipper Goodra variant, so I thought Dazzling Gleam was important enough to bring for the extra damage. HP Fire obviously being there for the Scizor, Earth Power hitting a variety of things, most notably being Arcanine and Zeraora, and Seed Flare basically just rocking his team really hard. Seed Flare, if I do get the Death Drop on a Florges, drops after 2. So I can potentially muscle through that thing, which actually is what ended up happening in a prep game I did with Jeff. I just ended up muscling through that thing with a Seed Flare from Shaman. Really, it puts a lot of pressure on his team offensively if I can bring it on things not named Weavile, and just get off some massive damage over the course of the match. I really like Shaman's matchup here on paper. So let's just get right into the match here. Looking at what was brought, like I mentioned, I did see the Beware. Very unfortunate because, like I mentioned, not great responses to that thing. It can kind of nuke something. Arcanine, Zeraora, Weavile, Scizor were all pretty much expected, and then he ended up opting for Florges over something like Suicune. So I'm thinking he's probably got Defog on the Florges then to free up the Scizor a little bit. But yeah, that's kind of just looking at the matchup here. Rotom Wash is a pretty free lead on my end. I can burn something, I can Volt Switch out on something. Worst case scenario, he leads Florges, and I can Volt Switch out into something like Dragalge or Scizor. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to lead off here with Rotom, as my opponent decides to lead with the threat himself. Beware the bear. The thing is in. The thing is now. Can't mess around. I got to burn this thing right now. If he's a Facade variant, that's really bad for me. Like, there's no getting around how bad it is for me if this is a Facade variant of Beware right now. But goes for the Swords Dance here, and I'm just going to Hydro Pump. I need damage on this thing so I can Revenge Kill him with my Infernape. And like I mentioned, I'm basically having to trade him on here for Beware. It's unfortunate that it's the Rotom here, but after Rocky Helmet damage, burn damage, that Hydro Pump, as you can see, goes for Double Edge. Even burn, that's doing a massive amount of damage. This is max Fizz Def Rotom, like getting whacked by this thing. You see, he takes obviously a ton of recoil. Rocky Helmet, Life Orb, burn, Double Edge recoil. So this thing's dead. No big deal. Just gonna Volt Switch out. Ordinarily here, I'd go get my Toxic Orb activated, which is probably what I should have done. But for whatever reason, I'm sitting here like, I really don't want to bait in the Weavile, especially with my Rotom being so low. So I decided to go out into Scizor, which obviously baits in the Arcanine, which I didn't realize at the time poses a similar problem where my Rotom's really low, so it's not a really good switch into this Arcanine at this point. So I make a really crazy play here and go hard Gliscor. Thankfully, I do not get punished for it with a Will-O-Wisp. It just goes for the Flare Blitz. As it turns out, this thing is something like, I think I'm calcing Adamant here on the Arcanine, but I am 2-hit KO'd by this because I don't get Toxic Heal yet. So I got to switch out yet again into Dragalge. So I'm just taking a bunch of unnecessary damage for really no reason. I could have just gone out into something like, excuse me, into something like Gliscor to get my Toxic Orb activated and had no problem originally. Now I've taken a bunch of damage on stuff. My Dragalge's burned, which is also unfortunate, as we'll see in a second here. But I'm just going to go for my Toxic Spike, because this man goes hard Florges on a Dragalge. Really unfortunate that I didn't just click Sludge Wave there. I thought Scizor seemed like the more likely switch in, as I went for Toxic Spike here. But Florges is in now. It has potential to defog. And I'm just going to go for Sludge Wave, get off a big chunk of damage, and see what he wants to do. He shows the Psychic, which unfortunately, due to this burn, because I haven't been able to get my Black Sludge recovery, I'm not going to be out of range of a 2-hit KO. I'm getting 2-hit KO by this Psychic, which means he can defog or Psychic me, or Psychic me then defog and knock me out, as opposed to being pressured out here by a second Sludge Wave. So my SUB is going to go down. Dragalge got the Toxic Spike up, got some big damage off on Florges, but now I really don't have anything great to come in and revenge it. Could potentially go Scizor here and threaten that thing with Bullet Punch, but I ultimately decide that I kind of need my Gliscor to come in here and get healed up, because Rotom's so low, and my defensive core is really getting whittled down here early in the match. I can't afford to have Gliscor this low, otherwise I'm pretty prone to getting just swept and bodied by Zeraora. So I'm going to roost up here as he goes for Defog, unfortunately. So the Toxic Spike and basically Dragalge completely wasted. Very unfortunate there. But now that I'm in here, I can prevent this thing from going for Wish or Synthesis or anything like that by taunting it. I'm just going to go for Stealth Rock first, predicting something like a Moonblast or a Synthesis or something like that. As he just goes for Giga Drain. So he's showing Giga Drain, Psychic. I'm assuming this thing has Moonblast and Defog. So no Wish, no Synthesis. Actually makes this thing a little bit easier to deal with. It can't Wish Pass into anything. It's actually very offensively invested as well, from what my calcs are telling me. I'm just going to taunt him to make sure he can't Defog my Stealth Rocks. And I guess he kind of reads that here and just goes for the Moonblast. Doing quite a bit of damage, like I mentioned, to my Gliscor. I can roost it off, but not super comfortably. And I could potentially Earthquake through this thing now that it's taunted, and keep up my Stealth Rocks. But I'm just going to switch out into Scizor. I really want to force this Florges out to keep these rocks up and get the Arcanine to come in and take big chip damage. Again, he's going to go for Moonblast and do a pretty sizable chunk of damage to me. Florges' special attack stat is actually pretty solid, even without investment. I think, like I mentioned, this one's a little bit invested. I make a little bit of a misplay here, thinking he might stay in because he does live a Bullet Punch. Thinking he might stay into Defog. I go for SD here as the Arcanine comes in. Really definitely should have U-turned there. Would have been able to get right back out into Gliscor, but not playing so well early in the match here. I got to sack off Rotom to this Arcanine. As it turns out it is the Z move Arcanine. So Rotom's going to go down here, and things are really not looking so great for me this early in the match. My Gliscor at least has gotten back to about full. Scizor is sitting on kind of low amount of health. Actually, Gliscor is not at full. I kind of actually bring it back in here and get some health back on this Arcanine, but my Scizor is a little bit chipped. My Dragalge's gone. My Rotom's gone, and all I've really done is gotten rid of the Beware at this point and gotten a little bit of chip off on Arcanine. He's going to stay in here to Flare Blitz me, but I can indefinitely roost stall this because I am faster, it turns out, and out of range of a crit. I should be able to heal back up on this thing indefinitely. So I'm just going to go for Earthquake here. Since I am faster, I will knock him out on this play. But he elects to go out into the Florges, which should be 2-hit KO'd by this Earthquake, even without investment. Gliscor is still hitting hard enough on Florges, which has a kind of meager physical defense stat. I'm going to be able to get a lot of Toxic Heal recovery up with my Gliscor here, which is exactly what I want, so that I don't die to HP Ice from Life Orb Zeraora. Again, which I'm expecting him to be this game. So now that I've gotten all that Toxic Heal recovery back, I'm actually at a pretty solid amount of health to be able to check the Zeraora. Obviously, he gets to go Weavile here right now, but because my Stealth Rocks are up, I'm still going to be chipping down at the rest of his team. Unless he's got Defog on Scizor as well, he's got no way to remove them. So that extra chip damage is going to be really nice for the rest of the match. Predicting him to go for an Ice move and also kind of not really needing my Scizor. I'm going to go out into it as he shows Ice Punch, and it looks like that is choice banned Weavile. So I have a couple options here. I could SD, but that's not really going to gain me too much here. So I'm just going to go for U-turn, which is pretty free, and it thankfully gives me the chip damage I need on Zeraora to put it in range of Infernape later. Obviously, it doesn't die to Infernape right now, but I can go Gliscor here, get a little bit more Toxic Heal recovery, definitely out of range of HP Ice, and I can Earthquake. So either the Zeraora dies to Earthquake, or it switches out and comes back in on rocks later and is in range of my Life Orb Mach Punch from Infernape. So it's looking really good for Infernape to clean right now. Mach Punch kills the Weavile, Mach Punch kills the Zeraora, Fire Punch kills the Scizor, and with the range it's at, Arcanine dies to close combat, or I think even Mach Punch at this point. Maybe not -1 Mach Punch, actually, depending on his investment. So I'm just going to stay in with Scizor here, Gliscor here, make sure he doesn't SD on me or Roost or anything like that. Just going to go for Taunt as he goes for the knockoff. Not going to do too much damage to me, even though I still have my item. So Gliscor is just kind of sitting here, eating up hits and not letting that Weavile back in. If he comes in on Earthquake, he's going to die because of the Stealth Rocks being up. So I can pretty freely just spam Earthquake here with Nightshade. I'm not risking anything. Like I mentioned, I'm pretty confident that Infernape wins this game at this point. So I've really got no reason to ever switch out here with Gliscor, or to allow this Scizor to do anything to any of my other Pokemon. So I'm just going to keep spamming Earthquake at it as he keeps going for Iron Head and Knock Off and things like that. Shows Night Slash as well, so it's actually Knock Off, Night Slash, Iron Head, and I actually don't think he ever got to reveal his fourth move on this Scizor, but I take it wasn't Bullet Punch. It might have been U-turn or something like that, but no switch-ins for Earthquake still, so the Scizor is also going to go down, and I'm still at a reasonable amount of health. Like, I will die to HP Ice from Zeraora at this range, but he can't go out into Arcanine. We've shown I'm faster than that. He could go out into Zeraora, but even if he knocks me out, I can just revenge him with Infernape. And he ends up going out into the Weavile, which should be able to knock me out with a nice move here. No problem. But like I mentioned, just going to stay in because Infernape wins. And I do actually chew the Night Slash from the Weavile, and I'm able to knock it out with Earthquake. So Gliscor putting in the work this game. Thank God it did not get burned on that switch-in versus Arcanine. Otherwise, I think I probably would have lost this game. I don't think I played this game particularly well, I'll say. But I did end up doing enough to win it here in the back end. Gliscor just kind of carrying the team to victory. He's going to bring in Zeraora, but like I mentioned, doesn't really matter at this point. Just going to let Gliscor go. It did its job quite well, and I should be able to clean here with Infernape with just a couple of Mach Punches. So one for Zeraora, and then one for the Arcanine. I think I did end up calculating later that it should drop to a unboosted Mach Punch here. So 2 kills for Infernape on the back end. I believe that was 3 kills on the match for Gliscor. And Shaman never hit the field yet again. I think I brought Shaman 3 times. Twice it didn't even come in. One game it did something. Did fine. Love Shaman. But unfortunately hasn't gotten to do too much this season. Oh yeah, that Arcanine's in range. So I did just Mach Punch a couple times here with Infernape to pick up the game. But yeah, 3-0 victory. Not feeling super great about it. I felt like I could have played this game a lot better. But in the end, I think kind of the prep won out. Even though I didn't play my best, I ended up having enough kind of in the tank at the end to come through and win this game. GG to Milo. Really good game on your end. I thought you played pretty well. Brought kind of a cool team. A lot of offensive investment on everything that I was not expecting to see. And that Beware is a huge threat. It was actually the first time I think he brought Beware all season, which is unfortunate because I love Beware. It just doesn't get a whole lot of usage in draft, unfortunately, because it's kind of slow. It's got that exploitable fire weakness with the fluffy. But really cool Mon nonetheless. I really liked Milo's team this season as well. Great season to Milo, coming in 4th place, or I guess tied for 3rd place in the league is no joke. Good for a great season really for the Pueblo Manectrics over there. But we are going to keep moving on to finals here, where we are actually going to get the rematch versus our buddy Jeff. Jeff and I have been in basically 2 leagues together now between the VPL and ABC, and we haven't gotten our chance at a kind of hype finals match, but this time we're going to get it because Jeff, I believe, was able to 4-5-0. No, it was 3-0. I was able to 3-0 Zenther in the semifinals on the other side of the bracket. So good stuff to Jeff. We'll see him in finals. I like my matchup on paper still, but I'm going to have to tweak some things from my last match to pick up the W here. I expect Jeff to have made significant changes to his team from last time, where we just kind of walled him out with Gliscor, Reuniclus, and Rotom. So I expect to see some significant changes on his end. It should be a really fun match. Jeff's always really fun to battle, and he's a very good competitor, and obviously a good friend. So looking forward to that. I'll have that probably for you guys about sometime next week. But thank you all for watching, and stick around for finals. Bye-bye, guys.